We have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat. Period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the lifeboat. Welcome, people. I want to give a shout out to all of the new crew. Got a lot of new people that are stopping by, and please give them the usual lifeboat welcome. We have almost at this point become famous for it, or I should say you have become famous for it. But so it's been a great couple of days in terms of the boat, but let's get back to business as usual. I've been talking to some people, about 3 individuals today that between the 3 of them, I probably chewed up about half of the day, which no complaint, just giving you a little background. Hey, the guy, good to see you, bud. Just to give you a little background, Noise Opera, good to see you, bud. Brittany has eyes. Yes. Glad to see you, Brittany. And Chris Mack, that would be Christina Mack. Chris, welcome to the lifeboat. Really happy that you're here. Christina does some very similar stuff to what we do on the boat over on Facebook. You may have come across some of her stuff. She does an awful lot with people who are in recovery as well. So that's very cool. Hopefully you're going to maybe down the road do an interview with Christina. But to give you a little background, spent a lot of time today talking to individuals who are trying to get sober. In all 3 cases, these are people that have been sober before and are now in the process of trying to get back to where they were. Speaking of sober, real quickly, Alan Ballantyne, our brother Alan is in the air right now, flying. He's on his way to see his parents, which is super cool. He's got, I think, 16 days or something off, which for Alan is unheard of. As you know, the guy's a workaholic. So very happy for him. And today is his 2-year anniversary with no booze, people. His 2-year anniversary without booze. It's been about 3.5 without meth, I think. Or no, it's about to be 3. It's coming up on 3 years without meth and 2 years without alcohol. And he's the perfect segue into this show. Because one of the things that I get all the time, probably more than anything else, what I get is people who can't seem to be happy and reach a level of happiness without their drug of choice in their life. And this is not unique. I want everybody to hear this. That's not unique. You understand? That's normal. That's really, really normal. And we've gone over it many times on the boat, why that's normal. Obviously, when things weren't working for us in terms of our emotional quotient, in terms of dealing with things in life, we used chemicals as a way to cope. So when we remove those chemicals, a lot of times it doesn't get us to where we want to be, right? You ever heard people say the guy is clean and sober? Have you ever wondered if that was just redundant, right? What do you mean he's clean and sober? Okay, well, that's the difference, people, truthfully. Clean means you're not getting high, right? Clean means there's no chemical in your body. But sober means that you're living a happy existence without drugs in your life. At least by my way of thinking, that has always been what clean and sober is, right? The combo of those two are awesome. That's really what everybody should be shooting for. And from the very first day on the lifeboat, we talked about how if you're not happy, if you're not living in a space where you feel like you're enjoying life, then sobriety sucks. It's honestly not one of those situations that's great. The dream is to get back to a point where you can enjoy yourself. There are individuals on the boat who are, coming off of methamphetamines. There are people on the boat that are coming off of cocaine. There are people that are coming off of alcohol, right? Whatever your previous substance of choice was. One of the ones that jumps out at me is meth. And the reason is when most people are on meth, they describe themselves as being really attentive, really happy, really, sort of fired up for life. They're ready to clean. They're ready to, do whatever. And they've got all of that energy and all of that. And it's important as hell to understand that the drug ain't doing that, right? What's doing that is the chemicals in your brain. Now, the drug turns those feel-good chemicals on like a spigot, right? And just it floods your brain with unbelievable amounts of those chemicals. But you're not buying those chemicals. You're buying a drug that releases those chemicals. And the dream of sobriety, the dream of living your best life, is to get to the point where those chemicals are doing what they're supposed to be doing without having to be prodded with a needle or a straw or a pipe or whatever the case may be. And I'm here to tell you today that that's possible. That's really where we're at. For 3.5 decades, I didn't think it was. Right? For 3.5 decades, I really was 100% convinced that I was not a person that could be happy unless I was using chemicals. And every time I relapsed, every time I made it 4 months, 6 months, at one time, believe it or not, almost 2 years. But every single time I relapsed, it was because I came to realize that I wasn't happy. And as addicts, we build up this nirvana in our head that we call sober. The whole time that we're on dope, we just know that if we can get off of this crap, everything in life is going to be perfect, right? All I got to do is get this crap out of my life. And we build this up to the point where, number one, it's not particularly realistic, right? Because, depending on how long you've been abusing drugs, it's a daily thought, isn't it? If I could just get clean, everything would be great. Well, the truth of the matter is, just because you get clean doesn't mean that happiness is going to knock on your front door and introduce himself. Hi, I'm happiness. Now that dope is gone, I'm here. We're going to spend a lot of time together. I'm moving in. Things are going to be good. It doesn't work that way, people. It really doesn't. To be clean and sober means that some things have happened. Clean, pretty simple, right? Get the chemicals out of your body. You'll be clean. Depending on what dope you're doing, 72 hours usually will remove the chemicals from your body, right? That's pretty much standard operating procedure for most drugs. Now, THC builds up in fat cells. If you've been smoking for decades, it can take almost a year to get all of that stuff out of your system. If you're doing methadone, that builds up over long periods of time, and it could take way more than 72 hours to get all of that out of your body. But for most people, that 72-hour window is enough to get the chemicals out. Now we're in Cleanville. Well, now sober needs to start kicking in. And here's where we run into problems. The average addict, again, has built this to nirvana and assumes that once I take care of that clean part, I'm good to go, right? Everything is going to be perfect. And because we've built that up in our head, when it doesn't happen, what's the first thing we do? We think, well, at least, I was happy before. Yeah, there was problems with the bills and, there's a warrant out for my arrest and my marriage ain't great, all of the different things that come along with that. But you convince yourself that, well, at least I was happy. Truth be told, you probably weren't. But the longer you're away from active addiction, the more you'll realize just how miserable you probably were. But if you're 4 days clean or 5 days clean or 2 weeks clean or whatever the case may be, it's difficult to not only remember the parts of that were great, right? It's difficult to not glorify and sort of build up the life that you were living, and you really start to believe that happiness is something that you can purchase. Well, one of the problems and one of the reasons that this doesn't happen is because we build up this crap situation in our head where if I get rid of the drugs, I'm going to be happy. We do the exact same thing that we were doing for the last decade. We just do it without dope, right? So, you laid around until 11:30 or 12 o'clock, then you got up and, you might have made the bed. You might have just stumbled into the living room. You may have taken a shower. You might not have. And all of the things that you have been ingraining as part of your ritual in life, you then start doing. You get up in the morning, you do the exact same thing. The only difference is you don't hit the bathroom for a quick fix, right? Or you don't go, into the kitchen and pour yourself 4 or 5 shots to take the edge off. People, if you're doing the same thing day in, day out, but thinking that there's going to be a different result, I don't have to tell you what that's called. Everybody here's heard that expression or that cliche or whatever you want to call it. But one of the best cliches in all of sobriety is you got to change people, places, and things. This is a fact. Now, I talk all the time about the small rituals that I built into the new part of my life. And a really great way to look at it is, things that I would have never done in my past life are now part of my daily ritual. And the things that I did every single day are never again going to be part of my life. So one of the questions I get all the time from people, if you haven't spent a lot of time on the lifeboat and you start doing the math and figuring it out, you go, boy, Mark and Tommy aren't getting rich on this. They put a whole lot of time into this and they're probably not getting rich. So, they're looking for the angle, right? Why are you doing this? One of my favorite answers is because I never would have done this before, right? If I was helping you before, I was looking for your wallet, right? I was maybe interested in you for some other reason, but the bottom line is I wasn't going to help you out of just, pure altruism. I wasn't going to help you because I wanted you to be a sober person. That's not something I ever would have dreamed of doing. So I made it kind of the basis of my life going forward. And I did this with everything, the making the bed, all of the things that I beat to death on this channel. I beat this stuff for a reason, right? You honestly, squirrel be nice. You honestly have to plan to be happy. And you hear the term fake it till you make it. I've always preferred to say live as if, but one way or the other, what you're doing is you're doing things that in the very beginning might not make you feel good yet, right? Like working out is not a whole lot of fun if you're 4 days sober. And you got to grit your teeth and sort of get through that, because what we're trying to do, people, is we're trying to take part of your brain, right, the malfunctioning reward center of your brain, and get it to work properly. I want you to picture this, right? Think of this in your dome for a second. If the reward center of your brain starts working correctly, it's mimicking what people on meth were doing. I mean, for real, right? Instead of putting a pipe in there and doing the 10 and 2 thing, now your brain starts going, what Tommy's doing is pretty cool. Here's some feel-good chemical. And one of the other reasons that I do what I'm doing right now, one of the reasons that my bobble-headed partner does what he's doing right now is because when somebody comes on here and says, you know what, if it wasn't for the lifeboat, I'd probably be high today. Our brain goes and releases a stink load of feel-good chemical. And not a shot. No, it's like turning on a faucet. And it runs sometimes for a week, sometimes 2. I had a great conversation today with Alan Ballantyne. The lifeboat's not 2 years old, people, right? So we most assuredly didn't have a huge hand in getting Alan Ballantyne sober. But he said, I can't tell you what a huge part of my life the lifeboat is and how much I use this to stay on path. And I swear to you, people, I could feel like tingling in the tips of my fingers. And I told him, Alan and I have gotten to the point where we're like myself and Mark, where, there's really a brotherhood that's developing. And I said to him, no joke whatsoever. I can't tell you what that feels like. Like there's a buzz that comes along with this, Alan. Like I hope you really are getting an appreciation for just how fantastic it feels when you say that. And the bigger the boat gets, the bigger the buzz. Honestly, the more people that we have a shot of helping. When the last couple of days, I was talking about some stuff that isn't our normal daily affair here at the Lifeboat. And I got kind of gassed up about this. That wasn't for your benefit. It was because I can't stand the thought of overdoses, overdoses and suicides and all of the things that the drug epidemic that's going on in our country right now is doing literally sickens me. And when those shows were over, I wasn't feeling great. I really wasn't. There was a lot of anger and there was there's resentment toward people and parties and parts of the country that have been involved in all of this. And it kind of left me salty. And then the emails started coming in and people reaching out and saying, you know what, I'm so glad someone is beating that drum. I'm so glad that someone is talking about this. And I really appreciate what you're doing. And then once again, people, right? The fingertips. And you just start feeling like maybe what I'm doing is important. Now, why am I telling you all of this? We did a show called Find Your Passion, right? So today, when I'm talking to these people on multiple occasions with multiple people, I said, what's your goal in life? Do you have one? If you don't, you might want to think about it, honestly. And it doesn't have to be world peace, right? It doesn't have to be splitting the atom, people. It could be being the best father I can possibly be, right? It could be, I would just like to leave the earth a better place than I found it. I would like all of the people that I come in contact with to think that's a really good dude. Or I would like when they close the box for people to go, you know what? The guy never lied to me. I never felt like he BS'd me about anything. If he said he was going to do something, he did it. Well, all of these things for me have become passions. And I've said it so many times on here, you're probably getting sick of hearing it, but I would wait in parking lots for the dope man to show up and deliver the drugs. And I would look over at Jack and say, if I could do it all over again, I'd probably be messing with watches. I'm here to tell you, you can do it all over again, right? I'm not a young man, at all. I'm definitely not a young guy. Most of the people on the boat are younger than I am. Ooh, cool sound. Cha-ching. That was a watch selling, people. But this is, find your passion. Find your passion. At one time, I assure you, when the doctor handed you your child, you thought, I'm going to be the best damn parent that ever lived. Get it back. Get back that passion. There was a time in your life where you said, you know what, man, I want a six-pack, and not the kinds you drink, right? I want abs. I want to bench press 300 pounds. I want to get a really good bike and I want to ride. We lose all of that, right? All of the things that at one time meant so much to you as an addict, drugs steal, right? I said last night, the needle takes away, right? The drug takes away. It doesn't give anything. One of the things it takes away are dreams, ambitions, goals, passions. How many times I've told the story before, one of my best friends for a long time, when I was living in Salt Lake City, the man must have had $100,000 worth of rock climbing equipment. And for probably 8 months, he would get a half a bag of climbing equipment, and we would drive to a place that would buy it from him so that he could get heroin with it. Now, I assure you, there was a time in that man's life where he would have rather died than given up one piece of that climbing equipment. And I remember, when it was towards the end of the run, for him, his wife said to me, I just can't believe the climbing equipment. Like when I watched that happen, it was the most painful thing in the world because that was the most important thing in the world to him. And to watch that go. This was the guy that I've talked about so many times who said, I love you. I don't ever want to talk to you again. Hearing your voice reminds me of heroin. Looking at you reminds me of heroin. I don't think you could be a part of my life without me relapsing. You're the world's biggest trigger. It's painful. It really was. But you know what? If me not being in this cat's life is keeping him sober, I will never reach out to him again. I'm completely cool with that. And when I sit and think about him, which I do often, I'd like to think he's got a couple of $100,000 worth of climbing equipment at his house. I'd like to believe that passion came back. You know what I mean? I really want to believe that. But you know something, damn it, find your passion. Find what you want to do, because happiness is not going to slap you in the face. Now, that being said, it will knock on your door and cut a deal with you. I promise you it will. But you're going to have to meet it 3/4 of the way. And in the beginning, you might have to knock on his door, right? You might have to actually go over to happiness's place and, if necessary, kick the damn door in. I talk about this a lot. When I started working with Q, he said to me, you're going to do yoga, right? You're going to do this, you're going to do that. And there was a relationship there where he said, I will get you sober. I guarantee you will spend the rest of your life sober, but you're going to do what I tell you to do. And at that point, people, I would have drank gasoline if it would have meant that I could get that crap out of my life. I would have done anything. So not knowing what that was going to mean or entail, I said, yeah, you betcha. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And I remember mornings going outside to do yoga when it was like 15 degrees out, in Indiana. It was just ugly as hell. And the only place we were allowed to do it was outside. And, I would say to him, boy, it's really cold today. He'd say, I don't care. I don't care. You know what I mean? You don't have one passion in your life. You got nothing. And, within a couple of months, I wasn't buying drugs, right? I was buying watch books, and I was buying, things that I wanted to read about and study. And then the sobriety thing became all encompassing. And, if there was a book in your cell and it was about sobriety, we were cutting a deal. Like, I was going to get that damn book, whatever I had to do. And I found passions. The reason that there's a lifeboat is because my bobble-headed partner had the same passion. And if you can find somebody who is of like mind, that's a beautiful thing. And the lifeboat is a very large crew of people that already have one thing in common, right? Two things in common will make a hell of a friend, but we all already have one thing in common. And that's that we know what it feels like to need something so bad that you can't say no to it. I'm here to tell you that that's exactly what you're going to do if you want happiness. Find something that means so much to you that you can't turn it down, that you don't buy by the gram, and you're going to become happy. I assure you. Every once in a while, someone will say to me, you know what, you're trying to get way too much done in one day. You're trying to shoehorn. You got your business, and you got the lifeboat, and there's the family. You know what, people? I want one more passion to try to jam into that day. I can truthfully and honestly say for the first time in my life that I love getting up in the morning and I hate going to bed at night. There's enough stuff still to be done at the end of every day that I love doing that it's a bummer. When 12:30 at night rolls around and I finally got to put down the last watch or stop texting the last person or whatever it is I'm doing, usually either watches or addicts, recovering addicts, somebody with the more potential than anything in the world, beautiful people, right? That just got to get out of their own way. That's pretty damn cool. It really is. But this is a process. I don't want anybody to think that what we're selling here is stop doing dope and you're going to be the happiest person on the planet. If I have led you down that path, my sincere apologies, for real. But that is not how it works. You are going to have to become a very active participant in your own happiness. You are going to have to get intimately involved in the process of being happy, right? And when that happens, you will be clean and sober. And at that point, chances are you're going to have an overwhelming desire to pass on whatever the hell you just learned, right, to somebody else. Because you really will feel like, you know what? I figured out how to pick the winning lottery ticket every single day. I can give you those 6 numbers and the Powerball every day. At some point, you're going to go, holding on to that isn't the coolest thing in the world to do, right? You get this desire to sort of pass this on to anybody else who is in that place that you used to be. And there's been so many cool things that people have said on the lifeboat, not necessarily just about me or Mark or the boat, but about sobriety. Some of the things that people said, like the dark forest, you know what I mean? Like I loved the analogy when somebody said it's like being in a dark forest. And when you realize that you can get out and you actually get out of that scary place, the average person might run. There's something about the compassion that is born only out of addiction that makes you want to turn around and go see if there's anybody else in that forest you can get out. We don't necessarily, we don't beat the drum for the 12-step programs very often, but that 12th step, having had a spiritual awakening, you don't have to use the word spiritual, right? Whatever you want to call it, but having had an awakening because of the things that, have happened to me since becoming sober, I felt the desire to take that to other people in the same shoes. To me, that is the coolest of all of the steps, right? That one really resonates with me. And I promise you, people, you can get addicted to helping individuals. And if you don't believe that, watch how the people on the lifeboat greet cats who show up. The person who persists in knocking will succeed in entering. Seventh son. He's just becoming one of the most, I don't know if he's studying Confucius on the side or something, but just been really bringing it with some very, very serious.
He's our daily affirmation.
I'm telling you, right? I mean, just a philosopher these days. Brittany Has Eyes says, I love photography and I enjoy painting. You know what? People, this is a perfect example. And seventh son, right before New Year's, had the coolest thing. I freaked out about it then, but I should have been screaming about it all year. He said, instead of making a New Year's resolutions that's not fun, why don't you just pick one thing that's fun? I want to learn to do this, or I want to learn to do that, or I want to do something that is purely for the sake of fun. Because I'll tell you something, people, when you start to convince yourself, cat, not good. When you start to convince yourself that the only thing that makes me happy is drugs, I promise you that will become reality. I promise you that will become your reality. And the sad thing is, it makes you happy in really, really small doses, right? I was a heroin addict for a really long time. And there was that moment when the plunger hits the bottom of the syringe and all of a sudden everything is good and you feel like, but you know what? Within 30 minutes tops, I was worried about the next one. And the beautiful thing about the life that I have right now is that I never worry about the next one. You follow me? I don't. The way that I have structured the joy in my life these days is that addicts are going to come. They are going to, hey, how you doing? That's my headset. Kitty. Great cat. The addicts are going to continue to come and they're going to continue to ask for help. Watches are going to continually pop up into my life. There is no longer a period, even for brief seconds during the day, where I think I have to go figure out a way to get happy. I got to go figure out a way to make sure I'm not miserable in 8 hours. If you knew the liberation, right? A lot of you do know that liberation. For those of you who don't, stick around. Stick around. And I'll tell you something right now. This works whether you're an addict or not. This works whether or not anything is wrong in your life. Happiness doesn't owe you a thing. You got to cut a deal with them. It is not guaranteed in this life. And one of the sad things that is transpiring in this world is people have come to believe that we are entitled to inalienable rights, one of which is happiness. What we're entitled to is the pursuit of happiness. There's a very big difference because a lot of people have chosen to sit on the couch and wait for happiness to show up, or worse, lay in bed, right? You realize that one of the biggest signs of depression is the inability to get out of bed. Well, I will argue that it is also one of the biggest causes, because I used to live in bed. For real, I used to live in bed. As a heroin addict, we spend a lot of time laying down. And, now getting up, walking outside, getting oxygen in my lungs, looking at mountains, there is so much to be said for getting out and getting a little O2, right?
Yeah,
It is a very, very big deal. But we're not owed happiness, people. We're not. We're owed the pursuit of happiness. So if you've got the clean part down, let's get active. Let's start working at being a happy individual. We say all the time that happiness is a choice. Now, I'm not trying to bum anybody out with this line of conversation. There are people out there for whom happiness requires medical attention. For real. We're not doctors. And I'm not here to tell you that you can wave a magic wand and get rid of, serious depression. But unfortunately, very often, mild depression brought on by sobriety, brought on by 15 to 30 years of abusing alcohol and drugs. People assume, once again, that, you know what? Hey, I'm clean. Why am I not happy? Well, if you're doing the exact same things, don't immediately be ready to raise the white flag and say, you know what? I'm going to need to get on some medication to make me happy. Maybe you will. But how much have you tried to see if maybe there's another route? If you get nothing else out of today, if you're doing the same things in the same places with the same people that you were doing when you were high, and now you're doing that clean, I assure you happiness isn't even going to come to your neighborhood, much less knock on your front door. It's not. Because everything you do and everything you look at and every person you talk to is going to remind you of one thing, that you're not high. Right?
Yep.
As good as life is, if you forced me to sit on a couch and do nothing for 2 weeks, I don't know if I could stay sober. I don't know. I really don't. The good news is it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
Doesn't that fall in the category of like the start of like a mental relapse? I think it falls into some of that. This is how I look at it, and I say this often, and I know Tommy's heard me say it a bunch, and he just addressed that, and he did it really, really well. That happiness is a choice. It's not guaranteed, but it's still a choice. We have decisions to make, and if you're going to continue to do the habits that you're doing, but prior to, but all you've done is taken the chemical, well, nothing has changed in your mindset other than, oh no, somebody knows I was taking the chemical. That's usually what it boils down to. And for me, in my experience of myself, whenever I would do that, man, I just realized that I really was not in a good enough headspace to even try to stay clean or sober, whatever you want to use there. And I'm not saying that I quit doing it, because I didn't. Sometimes there are situations where you power through, right? I mean, we all have those, but you still got to come back to your base, and that's where it's at. And it's hard for, like Tommy, you used for what, 30 years, 25, 30 years?
Yeah, about 35. Yeah,
35 years. So when somebody uses that long, it's hard for that person. Not only is your brain trying to fix itself, but even your own memory, you almost cannot remember what it was like before.
Absolutely.
And it does affect people. So people that are addicted longer, not only is it a physical thing, harder to get off this stuff or whatever you're doing, but it's a mental aspect there that you just simply don't remember. And what that causes you to do is you start looking at what you were doing when you were using or drinking or whatever you were doing. You start looking at that time, and you start equating that with fun, because you simply just don't remember what it felt like to have real fun and to feel that real happiness. And I know that doesn't touch everybody in here. I get that, but there are a lot of people that, including myself, and I wasn't in the drug world for, well, probably any longer than what most people are, right? Before they get help. I mean, again, and I've talked about that to nauseum now with my support system and all that. And I've been really, really blessed. And, and I was able, because I waited so long. I don't say waited. That's a bad word to use here. When I started using drugs to get high, okay, that's what I should have said. I was later on in life. So I had a whole plethora of stored up files in my brain that I could refer back to. Okay, and yes, we all have those, no matter how old you get or when you started your stuff. But it's like walking into an office building and one person cubicle has one filing cabinet. Well, if you walk to mine, it probably had 20. You see what I'm kind of getting at there, guys.
Yeah.
I think it's a legitimate point to look at yourself in that way. That hey, I really gotta focus. And if you seriously cannot remember what that feels like, well, guess what? Go create some more, and you have to. And it's not, it's not going to be easy at first, and it's not even really going to feel all that great at first. But and what I had to do is I had to step back and look at my family and what they thought was fun, right? So I tried to insert myself in those kinds of situations to see how it made me feel. And not all of it worked, obviously, but Tommy's right. Go find something just for the fact of having fun. It is a key part of our recovery that gets overlooked in so many different ways. It doesn't get addressed enough. It really doesn't, because if you don't know what you're fighting for, are you going to fight? I mean, and that's part of it. If you can look back, or you really want to feel that happiness, that's part of it, guys. And it gives you something. It sets a goal, and you don't even know it's there. uh, so yeah, I mean,
the only thing I would disagree with that you said is that that it probably doesn't apply to everybody here. I would say that it applies to most of them, honestly, because it is one of those things it's runs really deep through everything I'm talking about. We get to a point where we don't remember fun unless it has a drug attached to it, and your brain is. Niall said once beautifully, if you're new here, you might not know Niall, but Niall once said that, when he started to talk about the human brain was not intended to get abused the way that we do. We were never meant to pump the amount of chemicals into our brain that most addicts do. And for a lot of people, it rewires the brain. It did for me. And you really convince yourself that, if and you nailed it. When I told a story, every story started with we had just gotten wasted and, right? Or I was waiting on dope and. Every single story had unless I was telling something from when I was 12 or 13, they were all, in one way or another associated with drugs, which is sad. I mean, truthfully, but, Mark is the other one, part of this that you nailed is that, when you start sitting around, when you find that you're not getting up and you're not doing things, you're in relapse. Make no mistake. I mean, he nailed that. That is, relapse doesn't mean I just got drunk, right? That means you're using again. Relapse is that process that gets you to I'm using again. And those are the canaries in the coal mine. If you're laying in bed again, right? If you're starting to hang out with people that you used to hang out with when you were doing dope, like all of these things should be massive, huge red flags waving in your face.
And listen to your family, guys, your loved ones around you.
And the best thing about newfound sobriety, most of us spent a crap load of money every day to keep our drug habit or our alcohol addiction going, right? You want to go find fun? You should have a pocket full of cash to go find fun. It's just that most of us, money only meant drugs. So it's difficult sometimes to even think about it. Maybe go to an amusement park. Go rent those little go-karts and drive in circles. Go do something ridiculous for one day with your money. And when you find yourself giggling, like you haven't before, and you can walk away, Mark nailed it. When you walk away from something that you just did and you go, you know what, that was fun, and there was no drug involved, you're going to start to rewire the brain. And your brain is going to go, wow, no joke, that was fun. Yeah. You know what I mean? The next time he does this, I'm just going to pump some chemical out. I mean, honestly, people, I'm oversimplifying this to death, but the truth of the matter is that's the process of rewiring a malfunctioning reward center of your brain. And a shout out to to Jesse Brown said, you know what? There's a lot of good stuff and there's a lot of bad stuff that happens to you every single day. But what you decide to concentrate on is really what's going to stick with you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And our goal for the sober life is to minimize the crap, accentuate the best, right? And start to make that, a daily ritual, right? One of the reasons that I am always yelling about writing down what you did during the day is because if it's working and you forget it, that's a sin. At the end of the day, if you go, you know what, when I was talking to so-and-so and they asked me for advice and I gave it to them, boy, there was this weird tingle. Like I honestly started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time before. Your passion might sneak up on you. The third or fourth time that happens, you might go, good Lord, right? Maybe this is what I want to do. Go ahead.
That's a great, it's awesome when you recognize that for the first time. Because and I'm going to share something with you guys just real quick that happened with me not too long ago. I have shared my story. You guys heard me talk about how I was numb and all that kind of stuff and was finding happiness and stuff again. And I did. I found happiness again. But I have to tell you guys that it wasn't until about a year and a half ago, before the boat was even here, I actually belly laughed for the first time in probably 20 years. And the only reason why I knew it was because I was sitting in a room by myself. and it kind of hits you harder there because your environment wasn't what was actually, you weren't like participating. Right? So you got a comment you want to read?
No, I remember you telling me this story.
Okay, yeah. And so I'm sitting, guys, it was probably everybody was in bed here at my house, and I was in the living room, and most of you guys probably know who Mark Pyers is by now, but I was watching one of his streams, and something happened, and I can't even remember what it was, but I legitimately, belly laughed for 10 minutes by myself in the middle of the night on my couch. Okay? I can't tell you how liberating that was for me. And I know that we simplify this to the fact where we say, hey, your brain's letting all this stuff out. Guys, that's what it is. It is a biological thing that happens. It's chemistry in your brain. That's what makes you feel happiness. There has to be some sort of an electrical connection that's going on in your brain to even recognize that. And I know that's I'm going to use a term here. It's kind of ironic, but it's almost hard to wrap your brain around it, right? Because it gets to that philosophical part of everything that's going on, and that'll lead you down a hole that you probably don't want to really go down. But it is a legitimate point, though, right? There's stuff going on in our brains all the time. We just don't know it. And now that we're into this, what we're doing now, and I can't tell you how much I've learned since being friends and brothers with Tommy. I think we kind of share each other and we help each other see things that we didn't before. I couldn't imagine, and this is something I have mad respect for anybody, especially you, being in that life for that long and then trying to revert back and understand what happiness is. I just, guys, I couldn't imagine. I feel sorry. I really do. I have legitimate sympathy for people like that, because I know how hard it was for the limited time I was in the life, how hard it was for me, because you forget real quick. But,
you do.
And that's why we say everybody's walk is different. Everybody's path to sobriety is going to be different. But you're going to hit, if anybody's ever played video games, old style video games, right? Like Nintendo or whatever, before we had all this internet, first person stuff and all that, what did you do? You sat down, you put your game in, you're playing, and what were you trying to do to advance in the game? You had to go to a checkpoint. And if you made it to that checkpoint, then you could start the game from there the next time you came back and played. It's very similar to what we're doing here. We're establishing checkpoints so we don't have to go back And the times that we do have to go back, that would be like, I don't know, losing a memory card or something. Just that kind of a reference. And I know a lot of the younger people here probably understand what I'm saying. And but I don't want to get into semantics there. But I do look at it that way. We have to establish those new checkpoints. Those new memories become our checkpoints, and we're able to reference those. You go back, you grab them. If you're having a bad day, if you're wondering, man, I really want to go do this today, and I'm really struggling, take 10 minutes, sit down, do some little breathing exercises, and try to find a checkpoint. And if you find that, and a lot of times that checkpoint is going to be pointed out by somebody you love or somebody that cares about you.
Jason, I think his name was, oh no, let me make sure I get this right. I don't want to screw this up. I've got priors. Right?
Yeah.
Do I not? But so somebody just said, I'm getting ready to leave. Jonathan Hicks. Hey, Jonathan, we're glad you're here, man. He said, thanks for the show. Thanks for being here. You people are the reason there's a show. It's not about us. So thank you for being here. We hope to see you again. You know what? I'm as you were talking, I'm reading through the comments. It's amazing to me how many people just said, you know what? I love this. I love doing this. I find happiness in this. And to me, that's one of the coolest comment sections ever. Yeah. For real. One of the coolest comment sections ever. Because I know that for some of these people, they're talking about things that they're doing every day. But for some of these people, they're talking about things they haven't done in a really long time, right? They're talking about things they used to love, not things that, things that drugs freaking stole, right? You can get them back. I promise you can. And something, people, there's something so unique about getting it back. When that passion, and it hits you that, good Lord, I remember. It's funny, Mark, because you're talking about the memories and this and that. People, what I do these days, right? Okay, so I bought a bunch of watches at an auction, and they came in, and I think I told Mark this story, but 5 of them were swatches, right? These are very, very old quartz watches that were very, very popular in the very early 80s, and they're becoming hipster stuff now. But these were what got me into watches. And there was one model that back in the day was impossible to get. And I joked that it took 40 some odd years for me to actually acquire one. But I got this thing in the mail, and the second it touched my hand, the memory was, I was 12 years old. I wasn't on drugs, and I wanted this thing more than anything in the world. And the passion and the memories and all of that was a kind of real that I haven't felt in so long. And things are good, people, but this was just, absolutely incredible. And I remember saying to my partner, it's really going to be a bummer when I sell this one. Maybe I got to hold on to it. But my daughter recently turned 18, and I said to her, you could pick out any watch you want out of the collection, because I got about 1,000 of them. And, you can, and she picked this watch, which is just amazing to me, right? No crazy story involved, no nothing. She said, what's the story on that one? I said, you don't even need to hear the story. I'm boxing it up and I'm sending it to you, because I figure, and now at least I don't have to get rid of it totally. I can keep it in the family. But to hear you people talking about things that, passions, this is happiness, people. This is the root. You understand? When we say that you got to cut a deal with happiness, all of you, I need a wind-up pocket watch. Cemetery, reach out to me, my friend.
Hey, Jonathan,
need a wind-up pocket watch.
Yeah, Jonathan, reach out to Tommy in the email too. He says he's a watch guy. Jonathan says he's...
Yeah, absolutely, man. You collect watches, reach out to me. We'll talk watches for hours. You want some, love it. It's what I do all day, every day. I fix them. I repair them, I collect them, I sell them. So yeah, reach out to me for sure. We'll talk about it. But again, people, whatever your passion is, right? And it's really funny. The reason I wasn't laughing earlier, Mark, at anything that anyone said, but I remember you saying to me that story. And when he told me the story, he's like, I was alone in the house. He goes, if anybody could have seen me, they would have come and locked me up. He was just, and here's the thing, Pars is funny anyway. Some of the voices and stuff he does, but there's the first time that happens, you really get that belly roll, or you get that, where you're just laughing and there's no chemical there. It's just you, and it's just raw. Your brain. And I'll tell you what, it's your brain doing exactly what it's supposed to, right? It's firing on all cylinders, people. And, most of us get to a point where I need a wind up boyfriend. Those I don't work on, unfortunately. So, um, no, but it really is. It's something beautiful to see you all talking about it, and it's beautiful
It
to know
is.
that this is possible, people. It really is. We're living, breathing proof that this can happen. Mark makes a really good point when he said, that coming back from 35 years of this, people. I mean, honestly, when I got to the point where I knew that this was in my rearview mirror, and I really knew that this was something that was going to work, and I was actually going to be sober. I was going to be a happy individual without drugs in my life. I felt an absolute, overwhelming burden,
Oh, just
almost,
off your shoulders, man.
to
Oh God.
to make sure that I told everybody this is possible. Because honestly, and that was why the first shows that I did prior to it becoming the lifeboat with Mark and I, those early shows, I mean, it sounds like I spend 4 or 5 shows just talking about what a loser I was. That's exactly what I was doing. I wanted people to realize that if I could come back from where I was, I promise you can come back from where you are.
You're a great
I promise
example.
you.
Great
You
example,
know,
man. You
and
are.
and now I'm here to scream as loud as possible. It's not enough to
Exactly.
be clean. It's not enough to be clean.
I'm
It's
with you.
about being happy. It's about being sober. It's about, living a life happy without having to pay for it.
Now, what do you think about, guys? Listen, if he comes out here and he does that, not only was he doing that for everybody that was listening, but if you go back and you watch those, you can tell a lot of that's specifically just for him. He's doing
No
that
question.
for him. A lot of that, and I think we all need to do that when you're ready. Okay, I'm not telling anybody you need to. Everybody's time frame is different when they start doing those things, and we've had that conversation. When should we open up about our drug use and all that kind of stuff? And that is completely individualized, and even individualized to the people that you're talking to from day to day. Because there might be some people that can accept it, and there might be some others that might get you fired. You see what I'm saying? So there
Yeah.
is a something you have to decide there. And me and Tommy have just taken the approach complete transparency with what we've done. And I do believe, in my opinion, is probably the best approach you can, because that in itself is such a huge accountability checkpoint. When you do that, now everybody's going to say, well, he's kind of acting weird today, and it reminds me of what he did 10 years ago.
Right.
Maybe I should ask him if he's okay.
Yeah.
It just adds to that. But good to see you, Jimmy.
Hey, Jimmy Pickles.
Yeah.
Jimmy Pickles, good to see you, bud. Glad that you're here. I also, you know what, people, I know that we're having a good show when Brittany has eyes, throws out a yes. That
Yes.
always lets us know that we're having a good one. But Brittany also said earlier, you know what? We are all addicts. Just get addicted to something good. And boy, you know what? If that isn't the story of my life, I mean, I swear to God, if that is not the story of my life right now, you know what I mean? I am. If you've never met me and you showed up and just watched what I do, right, and the things that I do, you'd go, yeah, this cat's addicted to YouTube and to watches. There's something wrong with
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
right? But boy, what a great trade up,
Oh my
honestly.
God.
It really is just such a far better situation than ever was. And you know what, people, uh, I want to thank all of you so much. The number of emails I have received the last 3 or 4 days, obviously, we got a lot of views, and a lot of new people are coming on board. I have asked, and I'm going to continue to ask, if you're brand new, send either myself or my bobbleheaded partner, 2 or 3 sentences and tell us,
Oh,
hey,
thanks.
my name is Tommy. I was addicted to this, or I'm not addicted to this, but I just dig the show, or whatever, so that we have an idea who you are. Because the more we know everybody, the better off it is. But um, the number of people that have reached out to me and just said, boy, what a crew of just the nicest people in the whole world. And you know what, people? No joke, right?
Yeah.
I tingle. The feel good chemicals. They don't have to be talking about me. They could be talking about Mark. They could be
Yep.
talking about the boat in any way. Whenever somebody says, I came here and I just felt so welcomed, They could be talking about Seventh Son or Charlie Mullins or anybody else. The fact that this really is reaching people makes that little reward center of my brain get into fifth gear. I promise you. So
I feel the same way, man.
Yeah, we owe you guys a shout out, and we owe you a
100%.
thank you every day.
I can't say this, and I know we're at the top of the hour, so and I'll just make this quick. But my last group, well, 2 groups ago, I'm in my outpatient program, so we do a group once a week, and I had a guy in my group say, "Hey, man, I checked out your channel, man. It's awesome." I mean, I can't even tell you what that meant for me. We come on here on the internet and we're talking to the world, right? But we're not really trying to talk to people that are right next to us or right in front of us. And we understand that there's a disconnect there. But when somebody that you've known for a while actually says that, you didn't really ask them to go do any of that. That is oh my God. I mean, I've had counselors, I've had doctors, I've had all these people say, "Hey, Dr. Jetmore came on here. I love what you guys are doing." And this is what we're talking about. When we hear that, we get that tingling. It's just like, wow. And I'll go into that a little bit more on our next show, because I am one out of 1,500. One in every 1,500 people can actually give themselves goosebumps on key. You don't have to wait for anything. On demand. It's I don't want to call it a condition. It's just something that I'm able to do. And did you know when you do that, you're producing stem cells, helps repair your brain. Just so you know that.
Well, then you should be doing it all day.
Oh man, I sit around all day long, man.
Sorry, that was a sitter. All right, people, we have reached the top of the hour. We are going to be back tomorrow. Why? Because we love this. We really do, people. This is a passion. This is this makes the reward center of the brain do really cool things. We'll be back. I promise you. This is the key to our sobriety. So we will be back within 23 hours and some change right here. Same bat time, same bat channel. And between now and then, people, 2 assignments. Reach out and try to save somebody. And you know what? Why don't you make a deal with happiness between now and the next time we get here? Seriously, get a piece of paper. Take a little bit of time and write down the things that used to make you happy before drugs stole them. They may not be the same anymore. They might not, but they might be. And if they were stolen from you, then you really ought to steal them back. Right? Don't you think that would be a good thing to do? I think it would be a good thing to do. Yep. All right, people. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
And this really just poorly behaved animal is a cat in a basket. We didn't start off this show very nicely. She was tearing stuff up in the background. We love you, people. We'll see you tomorrow night.